Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to the Made Remarkable podcast hosted by Kellee Lynn. In today's episode, Kellee is talking with Drew Steinbrecher to share his evolution as a creative business owner. His passion for organizing summits and his creative process, Drew and Kellee discuss the structure and commitment it takes to run successful art summits, sharing insight into their philosophy and the community building aspect of these events. They explore the importance of artists being well sustained by their creativity and the role it plays in society, challenging the stereotypes of the starving artists and how artists can make a significant income in their creative businesses. Check out the show notes and transcripts for more information about Drew, exclusive promotional offers, and any special links mentioned during the episode. Kellee loves connecting with listeners, so don't be shy. Reach out on social media, and together let's build a community that celebrates the remarkable. If you want to be notified every time a new episode hits the airwaves, just hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining us today, and always remember, you are made remarkable, destined to achieve the unimaginable. Now, let's get to the good part. Introducing Kellee Lynn and Drew Steinbrecher.
Well, hello. I'm Kellee Lynn, artist, author, mentor, fiercely independent mother and wife, and the founder of a multiple six-figure creative business. And I love my life, but I've been where you're at. I was slogging away at this art business thing for more than a decade, but once I finally connected with my true calling, unlocked the magic of marketing, and built a system that could scale, well, I realized I could make an impact and make a substantial income. I'm finally running a business that I love, and it makes all the difference in the world. My biggest dream is to help you do the same. Let this podcast be the catalyst to your biggest success. You already have it in you because you are made remarkable. Well, hello again, Drew. I've got my good friend and client back on the podcast.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know Drew Steinbrecher, he was on the podcast a year ago. He's been working with me in the league for, we're on our third year together now.
Yeah, it's been since 2022, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, our little core pod of people, and we just keep
Yeah.
going and seeing the evolution of the creative business owner and just seeing where you're at now from when I first met you, when you were like, okay, I think I have something here. Where do we go with this? To,
Yeah, I launched that first
huge
class.
Yeah.
I launched that first class and was kind of asking you along the way. I had questions along the way. You were helping me, and then that class did really well. And then I said, okay, now what?
Now what?
How do I scale this?
And scale it you have. And that's the exciting thing about it, is that once you realize there was power in what you were doing, you just went all in. Now, what's really cool is that you've decided on a less traditional business model than some of the other course creators, because guess what? Running summits is no small feat. And here you are, and you run 2 summits a year as your primary business model. Why are you running summits, Drew?
There are 2 reasons. One, I think I'm really good at organizing people, and I like standing back and watching other people be out in front and get all the recognition, or be out in front of the audience, I guess, while I stand back and pull all the strings.
Yes.
So I think it's just a strength of mine. So summits work really well with that, right? Like that's exactly what you're doing. And then 2, once I was honest with myself about how I don't really like making content,
Yeah.
I realized, now I can have other people create the content and I can organize it. And some of the instructors are people who don't have online classes themselves. So this is a way for them to get out there and get their name out into the public, and because they're trying to grow as an artist as well, right? So
Right.
it becomes a little bit of a platform. Yeah, it becomes like a platform for them in a way.
Right. And they're super successful because you keep them pretty simple and you provide exactly what your audience wants. One summit is on collage and the other one's on gel plate printing. And wouldn't you know?
Yeah. People want to know how that artist does that thing,
Hmm.
right? Like that's a big thing in the art world. Like, how do you do that? There's somebody I follow on Instagram, and I just saw them do something, and I'm like, what is that? What is that tool? How, and I think that's what people want. They want to see how you make your art. And that's what these summits are providing. It's kind of, how does that person make their collages, or what tools do they use to make their collages and get the results they get? Or especially with gel plates, right? Like gel plates, everyone wants to know how to do the thing. Everyone's like wants to know how to do all the different techniques. So that one, I think, that's why that one especially has been so successful.
Well, because everyone also loves to use it. And
Right, right. Yes.
like, I mean, I have met a couple people who don't love it, but they're weird. I don't know. No, I love you guys. But for the most of us, it's like, to me, if I had to pick just one thing that I was allowed to do for the rest of my art career, I would probably pick the jelly plate. I mean, there's just something about it. Like, and
Hmm.
then all the things that come after it, which is why the collage summit makes total sense. What do you do with all those papers? But there is just something about that process that's so addictive and so satisfying and endless. Like I keep thinking, well, what more could there possibly be that you can do with a jelly plate? But
Uh, we keep
inventing,
finding more.
we keep inventing new
I
things.
the water-based spray paint that I've
Yeah,
started using,
that
which I
was
didn't know was a thing.
so cool. Like, I love the way that your work looks when you're making all these like bold graphic designs. And I think that's one reason why you stand out. Definitely, you've developed your own aesthetic and style with your art and with your voice and the way you use colors next to bold with patterns and then grunge and like, all right. So
I,
everyone probably knows you because of that.
yeah, I mean, I've said it before, but a gel plate has really, really changed my life. It allowed me to create the collage papers that I had always seen in my mind, right?
Hmm.
Which helped me develop my voice, right?
Right.
And then it's essentially given me a business
Yeah, it
with this
really.
online, with these online classes.
Well, and in full transparency, you've been what would you call it for Jelly Plate, but Jelly Arts Company, you've been
Mhm.
a advocate for them.
Yeah, so I'm a jelly arts artist and work with them on their new products, and I create reels for them for their social media, and I know some of the behind the scenes things, which is cool.
Yeah.
I know the owner, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then you get to sample all the new stuff as it comes in.
Yep. Yeah.
So I love the gel plate, and there are other brands, but really, I'm a big fan of Jelly Plate because I've tried the other brands and I really do prefer the Jelly Plate, the Jelly Arts plate. But, they're not officially a sponsor of this podcast, but they have been a sponsor of your summit. So,
Yeah, they are a sponsor of the Gel Printer Summit.
yeah, of the Gel Printer Summit. Now we just need to find you a paper sponsor for your Collage Makers
If
Summit.
anyone's out there listening,
You know who
let
I
me
love?
know.
I love Legion Paper. You should contact
Mm,
them. They
hmm.
sponsored one of my summits in the past. So, speaking of summits, just to make it very clear, this is only something I teach in the league. I don't teach how to run summits in Build It Remarkable. But when you join the league and you're like, I want to give this a try, and then it just has escalated from there. So, it's something you've become probably more of an expert at than I have because I used to run the Virtual Art Summit. I did it 4 years in a row. I got a really good system down, and I think you've perfected it probably since I've done it because you get significantly more people even than I did participating in your summits, and you keep it really simple. So some people do these collaborations and it's so complex with like a year-long commitment, but this, it's like you're in, you create your lesson as a guest artist, and then that's it. We promote it for a little bit and move on, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this, right? Like some of the league members are doing more like memberships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to 100% be committed to a membership. So that to me, like stretching it out a year would is kind of similar to a membership, right? It's kind of has
Yeah.
that feel to it. And I was like, you know what? This just needs to be like a 2 week pre-sale and then the 2 week event, and then we're done. We're moving on.
Right.
And they have access to it, like lifetime access, so they can go back and watch. But the actual event itself is only 2 weeks.
Yeah, where you have to show up. You have a
Yep.
Facebook group, you're commenting, you're helping people, you're supporting them, with whatever they need to know about that summit. And then the
Mhm.
time is up and you have a little freedom. But
Yes.
let's be honest, you usually start working on a summit more than 6 months in advance of it beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. They're about 6 months apart. And so when one ends, the planning for the next one begins.
Right, exactly. So it is a year-long project. It's just not a year-long commitment to the customers or the clients that you have to be there and continue to show up, like in the same vein of a year-long program or a membership or something like that.
Correct. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to limit it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is design the business that works best for you.
Yeah.
Because I know other people who would never want to run a summit because it's a lot of work. It's a massive amount of energy getting it all done, completed, promoted, and getting as many people in the door in this short window of time. But for you, you thrive on that. I mean, let's really look at what you were doing for a part-time career up until this point. You were helping behind the scenes, basically project management with
With the high school group.
with a high school group.
Yeah.
What
It was a high school color guard. Some people
color
listening
guard?
may know like
Yeah,
Winter Guard, WGI, all that.
yeah,
So yeah, so for over 20 years, I was coaching, I guess you could say, a high school group. And it was the same idea, right? I was organizing people. I had a staff. I organized the students, the parents. That was, there was a lot involved in that. And it was the same idea, right? Like I just made sure all the right people were in the right place to teach the right thing. And we were successful, especially even at a national level. So a summit kind of seemed to make sense. It was the same idea, you know.
right.
I
Leaning
was
in
I
on
was
your
I was
talent.
I was backstage organizing everyone else.
And that just leads into the I don't need center stage. I want other people to shine, but it's really fun to put the pieces together and make it work.
Yes. Another thing I think is I'm organized. I like my Notion.
You
If
need to teach
anyone, if
me. You need
everyone
to teach
knows what
me Notion.
everyone knows what Notion is, it's like a way to like keep track of everything. It's like kind of like what Trello or one of those Asana.
Asana, yeah.
Yeah. And my Notion's super organized and it's all cross-referenced and everything.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that.
so I think that helps in both of those situations when I was, coaching the high school group and with the summits, just being organized and being able to see ahead and think ahead and anticipate any problems, I think is also a strength of mine.
That's amazing. Not always a strength of mine, but that's why sometimes you got to hire out the people who are really good at that.
Mhm.
Would you say that's really important running a business is to have some sort of systems and accountability and scheduling and organization? Like, how do we
Yeah,
do that for those of us who are a little messier?
for me, here's another thing about the summits. Other people are relying on me, so I have to get it
Mm,
done, right?
mhm,
And especially once I send out, like I'm going through the process now as we speak of getting all the Gel Printer Summit instructors organized. And
mhm.
once I sent those emails, it's kind of like it sets the ball in motion, right? Like it's already rolling forward. It may be a little tiny snowball, but like it's going to get bigger and bigger as we
Right.
get
You
closer
have a
to the date.
commitment.
Yes. So I kind of can't back out. I guess I kind of could, but I don't want to, right?
Right.
So
But then now you're still working on your own course, which was the first thing that you launched, and you're
yeah.
revamping it and you've been wanting to revamp it for 2 years now.
Yeah, so then by contrast, now I have that class that I'm doing, which is basically a personal project, really. And
Hmm.
I'm kind of struggling a little bit. Like I've started, but it's not picking up a whole lot of speed right now.
Doesn't have the same kind of motivation that
Right,
running the summits has.
right. So that is a little more challenging to me when it's a self-directed project.
Yeah, I understand that.
I've learned to, in my midlife, I guess you could say, I've learned about myself that I tend to procrastinate with other projects. So sometimes I can trick myself into procrastinating and working on another project that needs to get done, if that makes sense.
I do the same thing. It's like,
So,
look, this one's due today, but this is also important-ish.
right,
So I'm going to just work on this other project that's a little more satisfying.
right. As long as I guess as long as I'm doing something, or as long as
Yeah.
it's not something that's just for fun or whatever, as long as I'm doing something business related or something to move my business forward, then it's okay, right? Like I can do it.
Yeah, well, that's the fun thing about being your own boss is that you do get to make decisions.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's also the reason why we have accountability with coaching programs like the league, is that the whole group of us, we're all paying attention. Okay, what did you say you were going to do last week? How far did you make any progress? And so then you kind of have to show up on that Tuesday and go, I didn't really do anything.
Right.
Which is why
Which is,
I hired a project manager for my launch, because I'm like, okay, I need someone to keep me accountable, because it's the same thing. I do run into the, oh, like, what is it? Pareto's principle, how much ever time you have. No,
mhm.
that's not.
It's
That's
yeah, the it work expands to fit the time allowed or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
give me 2 hours, I'll get it done in 2 hours. You give me 2 weeks, I'll take 2 weeks, and I will wait until the last 2 hours and I will have it done. But yeah, I definitely would love to work a little bit more ahead of time. And when I have other people waiting on me to complete something, then I know I need to do it a lot sooner. And that's been the advantage of working with a team and having promises that I need to keep to other people.
I think that was part of our success with the high school group that I taught as well. It was, like other people were there, like we had to
Yeah,
do it. Like I had to get it done.
right. So
So
speaking of which, after 20 years, you broke a lot of hearts and you finally had to say, you're done.
yeah. So I decided to retire. There were a lot of reasons. One reason was, the business was going so well, and I wanted to devote more time to it. And I kind of feel like I need to, right? Like I've tried for so long to kind of be this entrepreneur and do this and that, and nothing really worked until I started this online class thing. And I kind of feel like I owe it to myself to run as far as I can with it.
And you
So,
are. You
yeah,
are
yeah.
really, like, it's amazing to me, I would say in some ways even. Well, I'm going to point out something that I see. And one of the reasons why you're so successful is because once you had a clear direction, you kept going and you haven't changed course. And by putting something on repeat that you already have systems in place for, you know how to run it without exhausting yourself now. I mean, it's not that it doesn't take work, but when you're working on your fourth summit now, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm just putting it in repeat. And the more you do it, the more you're known for it. So why wouldn't it grow? And this has been the magic sauce that every single one of my clients and people who've gone through my programs have, especially in the league. We come to that final end of the year and everyone's like, I finally get it. If I do less, I'll make more. And that's what you've done, is you've got a good focus and you're not trying to juggle all the things. You have a summit twice a year and you have this one evergreen course that you can run, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of value in that. I think the other thing is that it also frees you up to focus on other things. Like maybe this time I'll try advertising, or
Right.
this time with the Gel Printer Summit, I'm going to have a free event before. I'm going to see how that works. It
Right.
allows you to experiment in those ways around the structure that you've built.
Right. And you also understand the rhythms of your year. So things like, one of your big goals that you said when we first started working together was that you'd spend more time in Colorado. And now it's like, okay, that's not a problem because it fits within the schedule that I set for myself. And you can go for,
Yeah.
what are you going for? 6 weeks?
6 weeks this time.
6 weeks. Like, seriously, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nuts too. I'm fortunate. That's just what it
Yeah.
comes down to. I'm fortunate.
But I love that you had a big audacious dream and you kept moving towards it and it's happening. look at what a big impact that makes, you know?
I think another thing is I'm goal oriented
Yeah.
too. So I have I don't know if abstract's the right word, but I just have a goal in my mind and I start working towards it. I would love to reach $1 million in a year with the
Yeah,
business.
but I know that you can do that. And why not? Because when you have that kind of income, then you get to spread that amongst other people. That's how I look at it.
Hmm.
It's money isn't pie. And I've been talking about this on my social media a lot lately. It's like money isn't pie, it's not limited, it's infinite. And we're letting the billionaires hoard it. Why shouldn't we have a piece of it? Because when artists have money, we do good things with it. Like, think about what a huge difference that makes, not just for ourselves or our family, the security that we create for our parents or our kids or our loved ones, but like I can support other artists. You can create with the income you're making, Drew. You can create these summits bigger and bigger and bigger and invest in them so that other people are seen. Other artists' businesses can flourish. Like, that's the beauty of making a bigger business.
Yeah,
Just on my soapbox here for just a minute, because I really believe artists are incredibly valuable to society, and yet we always go for this starving artist mentality. And you live there long enough to know what it was like before and what it's like to now be a multiple six-figure earner. Like, it's shifted the dynamics of your life completely.
yeah, it's like I can say now I'm a full-time artist.
Mm-hmm.
I might not be making the money from selling the art, but that doesn't mean I'm not a full-time artist, right?
Right.
I think you had something recently on Instagram about like, let's make it normal for artists to be millionaires or something
Yeah.
like that. And it's so interesting to me, this starving artist mindset that our culture has, right?
Very,
I think the more we talk about money, that's one reason why I always say I'm a full-time artist. Because almost every time I say that, people are like, "Oh, really? Oh,
right.
what? You can do that?"
Oh, like nobody really believes
Right,
that as an artist you could be making more money than a doctor.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so but that's why I posted that on Instagram. Let's normalize artists being millionaires, because we
Hmm.
never would question other professions making money. And that doesn't have, insert whatever amount of money you want. Like, normalize artists making $100,000, normalize artists making $10,000 a month, whatever. Let's just normalize artists being well sustained by their creativity, because we don't question if a doctor or a plumber wants to make that kind of money. We don't, ew, oh my goodness, that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I do still have a few freelance graphic design clients, and sometimes, like you would tell the client this is the hourly rate, and they're like, and
What?
but they don't do that if a plumber says that or an electrician says, like, why, why for the graphic designer? So,
Have you seen the price of food lately?
right, right,
And this isn't like I just started out. I have decades of experience doing what I do, and I
right,
spent decades being poor, and now I'm not, and I'd like to stay that way.
right, right.
It's like I already paid my dues, man, but there is something psychologically in the artist that says, I'm making something that I love. Why am I going to get paid for it?
And then conversely, just because you're an artist doesn't mean you have to sell things either. Like, it's
Right.
okay to be a hobby artist. It's okay to not sell.
Right. We don't have
So
to
that's
monitor.
the,
That's absolutely true. I mean, and
yeah.
because this podcast is mostly directed towards those who are creatives who want a business and want to make an income, I'm talking about this, but I also want to validate that creativity can be for creativity's sake and does not have to be
Mhm.
monetized. We can find other pathways to
It's
make an income and then save this creativity just for ourselves.
Yeah, it's like a weird thing culturally where people are like, you should sell that. But
Right.
then when you're like, okay, here's the price, they're like, no, I don't want to buy it. That's too much.
Exactly. You told me you wanted me to make prints of this, so I made prints, and now I have several dozen prints that won't sell.
Right.
Like, because there's just, we can unpack so many layers there. It's
Right.
like, you said you wanted, but you didn't really. And then you went to Home Goods and you bought a cheap print to put over your couch. Like, I
Right.
get it. But there is something special about real, handmade, handcrafted. And I'm not just talking to the painters out there. Like, handmade pottery and
Mhm.
handcrafted furniture and just things that are made with love. Like we need more of that in this world, whether you're
Yeah,
monetized
we
or not.
this past weekend I bought a $40 mug from a potter,
Right.
and I was like, that's great. I love the mug. I want it. It's $40 and that's what it is.
Yeah. And I value that, but that's because I'm a maker.
Hmm.
And so, at some point we have to get past this idea of what the value of an artist is worth. And I'm just going to throw out this idea, but how do we know all of history? Somebody had to create. Someone either made art, they made architecture, they wrote stories, they documented, they photographed. We know all of mankind through the creatives. So,
Mm-hmm.
where is our value in the world?
Right.
It's incredibly valuable. And anyone who's scared of AI taking over, AI cannot replace a real person. And that's going to become even more apparent as time goes on.
I've used AI for a lot of my writing, and every time I change it and I alter
Yeah.
it, and it doesn't sound like me, and I have to, like it's a good way to get started, I guess, but
Yeah.
ultimately it's not
Maybe you could
human.
let AI can summarize a bunch of notes you took, but there's no way it's going to write an authentic email.
Right.
It doesn't know
Absolutely.
my story. I mean, like, there's just so much about the actual human experience of being creative, whether it's for money or whether it's not for money. But for those who have decided to turn it into a business, or I should say, those who have decided to monetize their creativity, would be much better if they turned it into a business rather than something that they're just dabbling in, because it's an exhausting path to take, to dabble and only make a little bit of money and not a lot, and instead of actually going in for that focus and building something substantial that can make an impact.
Yeah, I think that's kind of another reason why I wanted to focus on this business. I didn't want to, like you said, dabble. Like
Right.
like there's a lot of potential, and I want to make sure I'm putting all I can towards it to take it as far as I can.
I mean, something so surprising as discovering that people have actually not even heard of the jelly plate before.
Right, yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like everyone thinks it's so niche, but yet there's new people every time I post something on Reels, someone's like, "What is that? What is
Right.
that thing you're using?"
I think it's
So,
funny too, because as creatives, we think it's all been said and done and there's nothing new under the sun. And in some ways, there's nothing new, but your perspective is new. And
mhm.
there's 8 billion people in this world. I'm sure somebody hasn't met you yet and the way that you do it. So it's like, here's Drew with the jelly plate. And then there have been times where you're like, well, so and so just released a jelly plate class. And will that matter? I'm like, no. And then you keep discovering, no, it actually doesn't matter.
The other day, I took my Instagram followers, and then, there's 8 billion people in the world, and I figured out what percentage of the world's population are my followers.
Oh, that's an interesting
And it
fact.
was it was like something ridiculous, like 0.000000001% or something. So I'm like, okay, so I have essentially 8 billion people left
Right.
that I could reach. And
Exactly.
and this is how the business is doing with that 0.00001%. So if could reach
So if you're like
1%,
at 1 millionth or 100 millionth of a percent, like I don't know how many
yeah.
zeros it was, of a percent of the world's population, and you can already be making multiple six figures,
Hmm.
then yeah, do that math in your
Yeah,
head.
even if it was 0.01%, right?
Right. How much more growth is possible if
Hmm.
you're growing in a way that's sustainable and a way that the message reaches somebody that says, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And apparently, on a daily basis, there's people who are like, what is that? So there is still plenty of room for growth. And every time you host the Gel Printers Summit, it's like, can we actually come up with how many guests are there? There are 12 people doing it, or
13 plus me, so 14.
14 people. So how, can we come up with 14 new points of view? And yes, every single time it's like there are at least 14 new points of view. And then
Every,
times that by 100.
at the end of every summit, I'm like, how am I going to find 13 more people that can teach 13 different things than the last time? and it always works. And
Always.
in that a span of time, there's like right now I'm looking for collage artists for the Collage Maker Summit for next year, and there's always someone that pops
Yeah.
up that's like, oh, that's new, that's different. Who's this person?
Exactly.
So it's like a never-ending
Okay. And
supply. I don't know if supply is the right word, but
yeah, actually, sure. In human creativity, it's a never ending, like, I would hope that's an endless well,
yes. Well,
right?
I mean, it's going to be, right? After we're gone, people are still going to keep making art. They're still going to be
Right.
doing the thing people were 100 years ago. So,
People were tens of thousands of years ago, whatever humans were on this earth,
right.
scratching designs into the wall. And we
Hmm.
can still take that inspiration to this day and make art from it, you know?
Yeah, the craft art industry is what does billions in
Billions,
sales each year. So there are
billions.
people out there that want this info.
Right. Well, I think there's a normal need for a human to be creative. Like that's innate in all of us. So it just means that there's more people to tap into to say, hey, here's an opportunity. And what you're offering is incredibly affordable too. It's not like you have big, expensive courses or anything. They're like so accessible. And I think that's the genius of the product in and of itself to be able to get thousands of people through the door to say, yeah, I'm willing to try this thing. I thought it was really cool that you told me the other day that some of the people who participate in your summits now had actually discovered gel plate printing from you and took your original course.
Yeah, I think there's two of the upcoming instructors that said, I took your online course and learned a lot from it. And they ran with it. And now they're instructors at
And
the,
now they're shining them in and
yeah.
of themselves, putting their own
Hmm.
spin on it, their own voice. That's super exciting. But I love that about you that you've picked a path to help other people shine. That's always been something that I've loved doing too, which is probably why the summit model worked for me until it didn't, because I've changed paths completely and trying to support people like you. So I guess maybe if you want to call me multi-level marketing, no, no, like, but the fact that I'm here in a position that I can now help other artists live out their dreams, which means they're helping other people find their creativity. So I feel like it's just spreading more goodness, and that's really exciting.
Mhm. Yeah, like the summits, people get so excited about learning from those instructors and sharing. We have the Facebook group and sharing their work, and everyone's interacting with each other and commenting on everyone else's work, and it creates a community, right? At this point now, people are coming back year after year.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
crossing over. A few people this past time said, I took the Collage Maker Summit because I did the gel printer summit and I need to do something with all these papers I'm printing.
Oh, well, did you do that on purpose? Because I don't
Yeah,
think you did, but I love
right.
that that's the result of it.
Right. Yeah. So people are starting to cross over and meet each other. And some of the instructors at the Collage Maker Summit this past winter were in the first one as students. And I found them via the Facebook group. Like their work was great and they had some teaching experience. So I asked them to do it. And I've met a lot of people through the summits. I'm excited for it to grow.
Yeah, and I have no
And
doubt it's
I
going to continue to grow.
and I have more plans for the Gel Printer Summit coming up, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully some of those things will work and we can, develop them further. So
And one of these days, you might even get your own course back out there into the world.
well, I do. I said I work well with deadlines. So, we are leaving soon. So, and I want to get everything leaving for Colorado. So
Yeah,
I need to get everything filmed before then so I can edit while I'm there.
yeah. That's a
So
good
chop
goal.
chop. There's
There's a
I think
deadline
I need to
coming.
get done.
So thank you so much for jumping back on again with me and for sharing your success and how much you love running a business. Hopefully, it's got enough of our listeners' wheels turning, saying there is always a new path, a new position for me, and there's 8 billion people in the world, so there's enough for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, 100% working in the mastermind over the past 3 years in whatever form it was at the time was integral to my success, 100%.
Thank
So
you.
if you're thinking about joining, if you're listening, do
Yeah.
it.
Well, and to be clear, Drew, you've worked with me on the like higher touch mastermind level, but I teach everything that I taught in the mastermind. I teach and Build It Remarkable at a little bit more accessible price point because more people can come in and learn, and you don't need to apply to join. I'm kind of picky about the league, but when it comes to the builders, doors are open
Yeah, I
soon.
mean, if you're thinking about building your online business, then go for it.
Yeah, or revamp.
100% worth it.
Especially because those marketing skills don't come naturally to most artists.
No. And the other thing I think is really beneficial is the networking and meeting the other students for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible value right there. We've become close, all of us. And I love that. It's such a, you know, it's not an intimidating community. I hear so many things about all the other businesses and industries, and yet we're just like, for the most part, pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I never feel like I don't want to share or I'm holding back or anything. Like it's very easy to talk to everyone and
Yeah.
share.
It's wonderful. So, all right, everyone listening, go and find Drew Steinbrecher. We will have it linked, but also if you just want to taste, you still have your board book
I
class.
do, yeah. So I have the free board book. It's all about using kids' board books to collage in, which
Yeah,
is how I work. And they're kind of like my sketchbooks. And it's a free class. You can go to the website, it's on there and sign up. Gel Printer Summit will be launching in the fall. So stay tuned for info about that. And hopefully my gel
that's
plate class will be up soon,
yeah.
revamped.
Well, and the whole point is you're upgrading it and adding brand new advanced
Yes.
lessons to it. So it's going to be awesome.
Yep. There'll be a re-grand opening soon.
Soon. All right, awesome. I will link everything in the show notes and we'll talk to you again, maybe in another year.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully.
Hopefully. When you're a millionaire, Drew, when you're a millionaire, go. All right, talk to you later.
Okay, bye.